I thought I was invisible, until one sentence changed everything. The room went silent, all eyes on me. For the first time, I was seen. But at what cost? Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I want to share a story with you that has been years in the making. Growing up in the shadow of my successful sister, Emily, I've always felt like I didn't quite fit in, no matter how hard I tried. But things changed one evening at a party that was supposed to celebrate her success. And that's when I finally found my voice. In this story, I'll take you through how I went from being invisible in my own family to standing up for myself in a way I never thought possible. It wasn't just about a party or a promotion. It was about claiming my own worth and realizing that the quiet ones can make the loudest impact when they finally stop stepping aside. So, stick around to the end to see how I overcame years of silence and stepped into a new chapter of my life. And if you like the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so I can continue sharing more powerful stories with you. Your support means everything to me. The invitation arrived in the mail late that afternoon, and I could already feel the familiar pit in my stomach as I ripped it open. The sharp crease on the envelope was almost like a warning, a premonition of what was to come. My sister's name, Emily, had always been a star, bright, shining, and admired by everyone. She'd worked her way up the corporate ladder with determination and charm. But I was always in the background, the one who helped, the one who stayed in the shadows. I looked down at the letter in my hand. You're cordially invited to celebrate Emily's promotion to Vice President of Marketing. And below it, in smaller print, Vanessa, +1. Vanessa, that was it. No respect, just a passing mention of my name, barely worth the ink on the page. My heart sank as I realized that yet again, my place was an afterthought in a world I had once tried to fit into. I hadn't expected it to feel this way. I'd made excuses for Emily's success for years, telling myself that her ambition had simply outshone mine, that she was always the one who mattered. But now it felt like something deeper, something painful, like I was being erased. I glanced over at my daughter, Lily, who was drawing happily at the kitchen table. She had no idea what this invitation meant to me, or the weight it carried. At 6 years old, all she wanted was to make her mommy proud. She didn't know the backstory, the years of neglect and unspoken expectations I'd endured from my family. "Mommy, can we go to Aunt Emily's party?" she asked, her innocent question piercing through the silence. My eyes burned, but I forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart," I whispered, brushing her hair back. "We're going to the party." But even as I said it, I knew this wasn't just a party. It was a reminder of everything I had never been able to achieve in the eyes of my family. The party was being held at one of those swanky venues, the kind with crystal chandeliers, soft jazz music, and the faint smell of expensive perfume in the air. I walked in with Lily beside me, trying my best to keep my head held high, even though the tightness in my chest was suffocating. Every inch of me felt like I was playing a part in a world I didn't belong to, and the heaviness of it threatened to crush me with every step I took. People mingled, laughing, chatting about business ventures, family vacations, and promotions. It was a world where I didn't belong, but I had been invited. The conversation around me was effortless, as if everyone had been doing this their whole lives, trading stories about new projects, the latest corporate wins, and the vacations they'd just returned from. The clinking of champagne glasses was a reminder that I was in the presence of people who lived a life that felt out of reach, even though they were right there in front of me. "Vanessa, you made it!" Emily greeted me from the center of the crowd. She was glowing in her high-end business attire, a perfect picture of success. Her tailored jacket shimmered slightly under the soft lighting, and her hair was sleek and perfectly styled, like she had just stepped off a magazine cover. She looked every bit the part, the woman who had it all. Her eyes scanned me quickly, maybe looking for a familiar face, or maybe just checking off the box of family member. And then she moved on. There was no warmth, no real acknowledgement, no lingering glance, no welcoming hug. Just a quick, half-hearted smile as she continued to work the room. It was as if I was just another guest at a party full of people who weren't truly invested in me. In a room full of polished smiles, I felt like the crack in the porcelain, the person who didn't belong. Yet here I was, invited by some strange twist of fate or obligation. As we settled at a table, I noticed the small gift I had brought for Emily, a hand-painted frame with a picture of us from when we were kids, before everything changed. It was simple, but it carried a piece of history, a glimpse into the time when family meant something. But as I watched her assistant place the gift aside, ignoring it entirely, my heart twisted. I thought back to the years when Emily and I shared secrets and dreams, before success and ambition drove a wedge between us. Now, it seemed like the gift I had so carefully chosen was no more than an afterthought, a token to be discarded like the 1,000 other pleasantries in the room. I kept my eyes trained on Lily, who was chatting animatedly with a couple of interns she had met during the ride over. She was a breath of fresh air, completely unaware of the cold reception I had received. "Mommy, is Aunt Emily happy?" Lily asked innocently, looking up at me with wide, curious eyes. Her question was so pure, so untainted by the world around us, that it almost stung. I smiled tightly, trying to mask the wave of emotions that threatened to rise up. "Yes, darling, she's very happy," I replied, though I wasn't sure of that myself. Was she truly happy? Or was she just playing the part that had been set for her, the picture-perfect image of a woman who had everything? But the truth was, I wasn't sure what happiness looked like in this room. Was it the laughter, the drinks, the way people traded stories with practiced ease, as if their lives were one perfect highlight reel? Or was it something deeper, something that had been missing from my own life for far too long? A sense of connection, of authenticity, of love? I watched Emily move through the crowd, her laughter ringing out, but it felt hollow, like a song that had been played too many times. She was the center of attention, basking in the praise of her colleagues, but I couldn't help but wonder if she truly felt seen, if she even remembered the girl who had once shared everything with her. As I looked around the room, I realized that no one here was truly interested in anyone else. They were all here to either flaunt their successes or to be seen with those who had them. The smiles, the compliments, the clinking of glasses, it all felt like part of a carefully orchestrated dance, each person playing their role perfectly. The champagne flutes sparkled in the light, but they were empty, just like the conversations. I wanted to speak up, to break through the silence, but I couldn't find the words. The air felt thick, heavy with unspoken expectations, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a part of it anymore. Lily, still blissfully unaware of the tension surrounding us, tugged at my sleeve. "Mommy, look at all the people. They're so fancy, like in the movies." I smiled at her, but my heart ached. My little girl, with her wide-eyed innocence, was taking in the world in a way that I once had, believing that everything was as simple as it seemed, that people were kind and their intentions pure. I couldn't bring myself to shatter that innocence just yet, so I nodded and smiled. The night dragged on, and the realization began to settle in. This was not a celebration of Emily's success. It was a show, a performance to impress and outdo each other. I wasn't a part of this world, nor did I really want to be. I wasn't invited to be a part of this celebration of success. I was merely a prop, a background character in a story I didn't care to be a part of. As the evening wore on, Emily's laughter grew louder, the room growing more crowded with corporate chatter and empty compliments. I sat there, watching my sister shine in her spotlight, but it was as if I were invisible. No one cared about the little things, the moments shared between sisters, the history, the memories. No, they only cared about what was here and now, the illusion of success and power. When the event finally began winding down, I looked at Lily again, her face aglow with excitement, completely caught up in the whirlwind of the evening. She was so full of joy, so full of life, that it made me question everything I had ever wanted. I hadn't come here looking for validation from Emily or from anyone else, but somehow, being ignored felt worse than I had imagined. The last song played, and the crowd slowly began to disperse. People made their way to the exit, still laughing, still chatting. I caught a glimpse of Emily once more, talking to someone from the board, completely oblivious to the woman she had once known as her closest family. I felt a pang in my chest, but I stood up, adjusted Lily's jacket, and whispered, "Let's go home sweetheart." As we left the party behind, the glass doors closed, and the music faded into the background. For a moment, I felt the weight of everything that had happened that evening, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I wasn't a part of that world, and I didn't need to be. And as the cool night air hit my face, I realized that maybe happiness wasn't about being seen by the world. Maybe it was about finding peace in knowing who you really were, and being okay with it even if no one else ever noticed. Knock knock. Now you're about to watch the best part of the story, but before that, make sure to subscribe to my channel so we can keep going together. The evening stretched on, and I began to fade into the background, as I always had. The glittering chandeliers above sparkled with reflections of gold and silver, the hum of conversation growing quieter in my ears as I slipped further away. But then something happened, something unexpected, something that would change everything. Arthur, a senior executive at Emily's company, stood up. I had known him for years, though I had never really thought much of him. He was always polite, always part of the corporate circles Emily navigated, but he was rarely in my orbit. He didn't stand out to me, not until that moment. The way he cleared his throat, his posture shifting from relaxed to something more deliberate, caught my attention. It wasn't grand or theatrical. It was subtle, almost as though he was making the decision to speak up in a room that had been filled with empty pleasantries all night. He raised his glass, his gaze sweeping across the room, a quiet authority in the way he held himself. And then his eyes landed on me. Just for a second, his gaze locked onto mine, and my pulse quickened. Was he going to acknowledge me? My breath caught in my throat, but I told myself not to expect too much. "I want to take a moment," he began, his voice steady, calm, but somehow amplified by the weight of the silence that followed. "Tonight, we celebrate the success of Emily, our new vice president of marketing. But there are those who have made this success possible, who have helped from behind the scenes." My heart stuttered. Was he talking about me? The room fell even quieter, if that was possible, and I could hear the slight clink of glasses as people paused mid-conversation, their focus shifting toward Arthur. I felt the weight of every eye in the room, though they didn't seem to notice me yet. They were looking past me onto Arthur, awaiting whatever he was about to say next. Arthur continued, his voice smooth and steady. "There's always someone who works quietly, who offers support without looking for recognition. Someone like Vanessa." The words were a surprise, each syllable crashing against the walls I had built around myself for so long. It was like a wave, and for a moment, I was drowned in it. The room was silent, every person frozen, their gazes now drawn to me. The years of silence, of feeling invisible, suddenly seemed to wash away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of being seen. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was powerful. It was as though the quiet had been broken by a single truth, a truth I had been waiting for, without even knowing it, a truth that I had feared would never come. The eyes in the room slowly began to turn toward me. Some were filled with confusion, as if they were wondering who this woman was that Arthur had singled out. Others, I could tell, were filled with admiration, maybe even respect, something I had never truly felt in this space before. I stood there, my breath slow and steady, trying not to let the wave of emotion flood me entirely. But I couldn't help it. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was actually present, not just a bystander in my own life. Emily's smile faltered as she caught my eye. There was a moment of hesitation, a flicker of something across her face. For the first time, the mask she wore so expertly slipped. I saw something there. Was it jealousy or guilt? It was hard to tell, but it was unmistakable. I couldn't say what it was, but in that instant I understood. Arthur's words had broken the silence that had surrounded me for years. And though it wasn't loud, though it wasn't dramatic, it felt like an explosion in my chest. For the first time, I had been acknowledged, not as an afterthought or an invisible presence in someone else's shadow, but as someone who had made a difference. Emily didn't say anything after that. She didn't have to. The words had already been spoken, and they had shaken the foundation of our relationship, of everything I thought I knew about her. The room slowly started to come back to life. People exchanged glances, some awkward, some unsure of how to respond to what had just happened. The applause began, polite and restrained at first, hesitant like they weren't quite sure whether to show approval or merely acknowledge a shift in the atmosphere. But then, one person clapped louder, their hand striking against the wood, and that sparked a ripple. I didn't know what to do. Should I stand and thank Arthur? Should I respond to the applause? My hands were trembling, but I remained still. I didn't need to speak. The moment spoke for itself. Across the room, Emily was still staring at me, her smile tight and strained. But it wasn't just her. There was a sense of discomfort in her stance, a subtle shift that I couldn't ignore. For a brief second, I wondered if she regretted something. Was she starting to realize what she had taken from me all these years? Or was it simply a momentary weakness? But I didn't dwell on it. Not anymore. The applause had ended, and for a second, there was nothing but the hum of conversations picking up again, the quiet laughter returning. People were moving on, and yet, everything had changed. The room wasn't the same anymore. It had shifted. The truth had been spoken, and whether they wanted to admit it or not, the truth was now part of the air in this room. And just for that moment I stood taller. I had been seen. Arthur had made sure of it. I took a deep breath and glanced down at my hands, trying to steady myself. My heart was still pounding, but it was no longer out of fear. It was out of a strange, unfamiliar sense of power. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't invisible. I was there in that room and I mattered. And now, as I looked around, I realized something even more profound. I wasn't waiting for someone else to make me feel seen anymore. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation, because I had finally given it to myself. Arthur's words had opened the door, but it was up to me whether or not I walked through it. And I knew, for the first time, I was ready to step forward. As the night wound down, I found myself standing on the balcony, the cool breeze sweeping through my hair. Lily was asleep in my arms, her tiny hand clutching the frame I had brought for Emily. The feeling of her was like the most precious thing in the world. Her soft breaths made everything feel dreamlike, as if the night had stopped just so I could savor this fleeting moment. The city lights shimmered in the distance, and the soft music from inside seemed to fade away, leaving only the silence. I couldn't help but think about everything that had changed in just a few hours. Arthur's steady footsteps cut through the silence, and he joined me outside. His presence was calm and reassuring, but something felt different in the air, something unspoken. He was the kind of person who only spoke when it really mattered, and when he broke the silence, I could feel the weight of his words. "Vanessa," he began, his voice steady and sincere. "I hope you don't mind me speaking out. It's just, I see so much more in you than you give yourself credit for. I wanted to make sure you know that." I didn't know what to say. Those words felt like a revelation, like something I'd been waiting for my entire life. And in that moment, I realized I didn't need Emily's approval. I didn't need anyone's validation. It was like the layers of doubt, of uncertainty that I had clung to for so long suddenly fell away. Arthur's gaze softened as he gently placed a folded letter into my hand, breaking my trance. The letter was neatly folded, but I could feel the weight of it, the weight of something truly significant, something real. "This is for you," he said, his voice softer now, as if he understood the gravity of the moment. "A position at a nonprofit I'm working with. You'd be perfect for it. Leading a program for people who have worked in the shadows for too long, helping them find their voice." My heart started racing. For the first time in years, I was being offered something real, something that recognized me for who I was, not as someone's shadow, but as an individual with my own strengths and abilities. That letter trembled in my hands as I looked at Arthur, my mind swirling. I couldn't process it all. It was almost like a dream. Too many hopes, too much potential. I had been made to feel small for so long, telling myself I didn't deserve it, but now it seemed like a dream was coming true. Could it really be possible? Could I finally have a seat at the table I had been watching from the outside for so long? Looking into Arthur's eyes, I saw something unexpected. He wasn't just offering me a job. He was offering me a chance at redemption, a chance to reclaim everything I had given to others for so long. We stood in silence for a moment, our words lingering in the air. No one spoke, but we both knew that something had changed. Something deep had shifted within me, and I wouldn't let it go. The years of silence, of neglect, had been lifted, and I had found my voice again. I wouldn't let it be silenced any longer. As we left that night, I felt different, lighter yet stronger. The weight of years of neglect had been replaced with something else, a sense of dignity, a sense of purpose. Not just a job offer, but the recognition of my existence in this world. I had always been there, but now, for the first time, people were starting to see me for who I truly was. I looked at Lily as we walked out of the venue, her small body nestled in my arms, and when we stepped outside into the cool night air, I realized that I had changed. I was no longer the woman who had walked into that place. I was someone new, someone who had regained her voice, her strength, and her place in this world. And as I looked up at the star-filled sky, I knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. I would no longer live in the shadows. I had a future to build, and this time I would build it for myself. What do you think about this story? I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings, whether it resonated with you, or if you've had similar experiences. Leave your comments and feedback below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more heartfelt and thought-provoking stories that will keep you coming back for more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story from start to finish. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to share the next chapter with you. See you soon.